Today I'm honored to welcome Daniel Rasmussen to the Gaithersburg Book Festival. Just 2 years out of Harvard, Rasmussen has already achieved honors surpassing his age. He won the Catherine Ann Huggins Prize, the Perry Miller Prize, and Thomas Temple Hoops Prize for his thesis at Harvard, which was to become American Uprising, the book we will hear of today. American Uprising delves into the history of an 1811 slave uprising in New Orleans, what was actually the largest slave revolt in American history. Yet very few people know anything about the events that transpired there. New Orleans in general is shrouded in mystery, its history often ignored in textbooks and idealized in our cultural interactions. But in the past 6 years alone, New Orleans and the Mississippi River and Gulf Coast areas have been central to some of our nation's most significant current events. The history of the city and its surrounding areas have contributed much to the history of America as a whole, but is often ignored because New Orleans for so long was not American, and even after its Americanization, remained largely European in culture. But now, with Daniel Rasmussen's book on the 1811 slave uprising, we have one of the most extensive looks at a little-known piece of early American history. And this year, 200 years after the rebellion, and 150 years after the start of the Civil War, it is even more important to take a look back and remember the people and the values for whom that war was fought. On a personal note, I just graduated from the University of Maryland this week with a degree in historical archaeology. I've always been fascinated by plantation archaeology and by the lives of enslaved individuals and their daily methods of resistance. To read about a group of slaves, and as large a group as this one was, who outright rebelled, gives a powerful insight into the power of people combined to overcome great oppression. So please join me in welcoming Daniel Rasmussen.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for coming. It's really wonderful to be here at the Gaithersburg Book Festival. I'm from D.C., or grew up here, and so it's nice to be back in the area. I think it's fitting that we're here today in 2011 talking about this revolt. As many of you might know, it's the 150th anniversary of the start of the Civil War. But equally as importantly, in my mind, it's also the 200th anniversary of America's largest slave revolt, which took place in New Orleans 200 years ago. And while much attention has been lavished on the sesquicentennial of the Civil War, almost no attention has been focused upon this slave revolt, despite the fact that it was the largest act of slave resistance in American history. And so I hope that you'll enjoy hearing this story today, and I hope that you'll work with me to spread this story and try to make sure that this story enters the textbooks where it belongs, and that we no longer forget what I would argue is a central moment in our history, and a moment which I think has much to tell us today, not only about what set this country on the path to civil war, but about who we are as Americans and how we should think about our past. I want to start this talk by focusing on Haiti, which might seem like an unusual place to start a talk about American history. But I would argue that without understanding Haiti, we cannot understand the history of Louisiana or the South. Now, I think today when we think of Haiti, we think about those images you see on television of the horrible poverty and devastation from natural disasters that have taken place there. But in 1791, through the beginning of the 19th century, Haiti was a beacon of hope, a beacon of liberty for enslaved peoples across the New World. That's because starting in 1791, slaves on the island of Haiti, which at the time was, you can think of sugar as the oil of that time, and Haiti as the Saudi Arabia of the day. It was the most lucrative commercial point in probably the entire world. It fueled the entire economy of France. And that was basically driven off slave labor in Haiti. There were, tens of thousands of slaves on the island, only, mere thousands of white planters who governed the island. And it was a very combustible environment. And starting in 1791, African slaves on the island of Haiti rose up. And over the next 13 years, they drove out the French. They defeated 70,000 French troops. The armies of Napoleon Bonaparte, right? The greatest warlord Europe has ever seen, defeated, his armies defeated by a band of slaves on the island of Haiti. in 1803, they declare independence. And I want to read to you a passage from the Haitian Declaration of Independence. It's a little bit different than our Declaration of Independence, but I think it will help give some insight into the political climate of the New World, and especially the world of the slaves throughout the New World. Jean-Jacques Dessalines wrote, "Let us imitate those people who, extending their concern into the future and dreading to leave an example of cowardice for posterity, preferred to be exterminated rather than lose their place as one of the world's free peoples. May the French tremble when they approach our coasts, if not by the memory of the cruelty that they have inflicted, at least by the terrible resolution that we are about to devote to death anyone born French who would dirty with his sacrilegious foot the territory of liberty." These are quite strong words. But I want to explain to you why they're strong words, and to do that I want to focus on one word in that declaration, which is the word exterminate. It's an unusually powerful word to use in one's Declaration of Independence, exterminate. So I want to tell you about General Rochambeau, who was the French general in Haiti. One of his first acts upon being appointed the general in charge of suppressing the Haitian Revolution was to go to Cuba. And there he purchased a pack of bloodhounds trained to eat human flesh. These bloodhounds were about the size of small horses. And he said that the war against the Haitian slaves can only be won by extermination. And only if we kill every last slave on the island can we ever ensure that France will return to sovereignty on that island. And so he brings in these bloodhounds, trained to eat human flesh, the idea that these dogs will help him with the process of exterminating the slave rebels. Now, unfortunately for Rochambeau, and fortunately for Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Toussaint Louverture, and the French, then the Haitian rebels, dogs have terrible color vision. And after eating several French soldiers, Rochambeau canceled the experiment. But I think this should give you some hint at what the environment was like, just the level of violence, and what it meant when Jean-Jacques Dessalines said, "We would prefer to be exterminated rather than lose our place as one of the world's free peoples." Now, what might this have to do with Louisiana? Well, you see, it's no coincidence that the Louisiana Purchase happened in the exact same year as Haiti finally won its independence. Napoleon was rumored to have banged his fist down on the table and said, "Damn sugar, damn coffee, damn colonies." And he said, well, without Haiti, which is essentially, Saudi Arabia at the time, why do I need Louisiana? Which was, a backwards breadbasket. The idea was that you grow food in Louisiana, ship it to Haiti, and then you make all your money growing sugar in Haiti. And so without Haiti, there's no point to maintaining Louisiana. So often in your textbooks, it's sort of like, well, why would Napoleon have been so stupid as to sell this vast, rich, profitable land in the United States, in North America to the United States rather than keeping it for himself? What an idiot. Well, the reality is without Haiti, there was no point. He had no reason to maintain his control of this area in the North American continent. And so you see the Haitian Revolution is the reason that Louisiana became American. And now an interesting thing happens in Louisiana, given that the fall of Haiti has just happened. See, Haiti's sugar production has fallen from 70,000 tons of sugar in 1791 to about 10,000 by 1798. And there's a man, a very smart man, named John Noel d'Estrahan, who is a French aristocrat who had moved to Louisiana. And he said, well, look, with Haiti's sugar production falling, surely we can grow sugar here in Louisiana. And so he started doing that. And they realized that though the sugar was of a lower quality than the sugar being produced in Haiti, given that there was no sugar production coming out of Haiti anymore, they could still sell it on the market and they could get very, very rich. Now, John Noel d'Estrahan, a few years later, I want to read to you a quote from John Noel d'Estrahan. He said, "Without slavery, cultivation must cease, the improvements of a century be destroyed, and the great river resume its empire over our ruined fields and demolished habitations." What John Noel d'Estrahan was saying is essentially that New Orleans was built upon slavery. It was slaves that built the levee. It was slaves that built the sugar plantations. It was slaves that made the reason for these men to move to New Orleans. You see, why would a French aristocrat from Paris move to Louisiana to live in the brutal sun, the mosquitoes, 105-degree heat, the yellow fever? Why? Well, the reason was it was extremely, extremely profitable. And it was sort of the Wild West. If you wanted to become rich and you were a French planter, you'd go to Louisiana because it was the best place to grow sugar. Now, how profitable was it? Let me just give you a little bit of a sense of that. It costs $800 to buy a slave in Louisiana at the beginning of the 19th century. A slave produces $250 worth of sugar per year. That's about a 30% ROI, so 30% a year return on your investment. Now, A slave brought to Louisiana and sold into slavery has an average lifespan of 7 years. So you can do the math real quick, but you've doubled your money by buying a slave and working them to death in 7 years.